YouTube Ozico, the Godows is back after a crazy week 2 in the NFL, recapping Sunday's action. Comeback Sunday, we'll call it here. So every single game on Sunday, a lot to break down here. It's always crazy early in the year when we're here for it. So got all my takeaways here, but yeah, I'm rocking the Packers chain right now. Vikings, it feels weird. Vikings fan rocking the Packers chain. But they got the job done on Sunday night, but I like that Aaron Jones, who had a monster night when he scored, he showed off his chain from the GLD shop, who we are partnered with. You see underneath me right now, there's a link for their site pinned in the comments. We also have code GOAT for 33% off. NFL players wear their stuff. You see Aaron Jones. Real gold, very affordable, especially with that code. Some sick stuff, so check it out. We have prizes in our Picks League from the GLD shop as well. And then ways for you guys to get involved in videos. There's links down below for those Picks Leagues. You're late, but it's not too late to get involved there on those leagues. A lot more going on. Anything you're looking for on the screen, there's links pinned in the comments for more information. Make sure you check out our Twitter. We still have 2 Monday Night Football games. We'll be talking live with takeaways during those games like we do for every game. So you're missing out if you're not following our Twitter. Link down below. Yeah, so there's some NFL players wearing the stuff from the GLD shop. We have a giveaway, league prizes, links down below for that. Check out their stuff there. But the first game, which was a wild game, the Jets and the Browns. The Jets get the job done 31-30. The Browns choked this one away. And I did say during the week that this one's closer than everyone thinks. Like, the Jets could win this game. And I guess I was right on that part, but I did not think the game was going to go like this. So I don't think I was right at all here. And I picked the Browns to win, so I definitely wasn't right. It just did not go. I thought it'd be a very low-scoring game. Did not expect a shootout. A lot of movement from both these offenses. But, yeah, the Browns choked it away. I mean, Nick Chubb runs that last touchdown in with 1:55 to go up 30-17. It's unfortunate it's not 31-17, but it's 30-17. And you think the game's over. And again, 1:55, and it's not over. Credit to the Jets for clutching up, get the job done. But, yeah, people are ripping Chubb for not going down. Perfect world, he should have went down. Kareem Hunt was running out of bounds before that. I don't think people talk about that really. These are small mistakes we could put on the coaching staff, maybe more so than the players, or evenly with the players. That they're small mistakes that definitely need to be cleaned up, and they were kind of costly at the end of this. But is that the number one problem? I'm going to say no. I don't think it's Nick Chubb's fault who went off. Kareem Hunt ran very well. I don't think it's his fault. The staff's got to have him a little bit more prepared, so I'm almost going to put a little bit more on them. But that's still not the number one problem. And after that, the Jets hit a bomb to Corey Davis. It looked like the defense there was a mixture of it. It looked like it kind of packed it in, the Browns defense, where it was like, yeah, game's over. I saw a little bit of that, which I'm going to put on. We got to put on the players, but you got to put on the coaching staff as well. But there's also a big miscommunication on that, just blown coverage, big time. Like, that shouldn't happen. I know it's early season, and that'll be an excuse, and sometimes teams do that early season, and they'll figure it out. But, I mean, it's as simple as, every man has his job in zone coverage. If the play gets called in and you don't understand what the coverage is, that's a huge problem. Or if you're forgetting what your responsibilities, that's also a huge problem. So, I don't know what happened on that play. I keep watching it back, and the key for me is Delpit. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what he's doing, because he came up at first, which kind of made it look like cover 3. So you have a corner get a third. Then you have Johnson, the safety, getting the deep third. And then you have the other corner on the other side with a third. So that tells me, Delpit at first kind of coming up. It tells me that maybe it was cover 3, then it would be on Ward. But then Delpit instantly tried to get back. Is that cover 4, which I think it would still be. I mean, I know it would still be on Ward if it was cover 4. There was just a I think, honestly, it might have been each guy thought it was a different coverage. Like, it's not just one guy missed his responsibility. So that thing got blown up big time. So, that was a big problem in the game. And then they don't get the onside kick. Maybe Amari Cooper shouldn't be on the hands team there on the onside. I mean, he's got the hands to be on hands team, but not in that particular situation, because it feel like he was afraid of contact there. He tried to stick his hands in there and swat the ball out of bounds instead of what he's supposed to do and fall on it. So that's a brutal mistake. Get somebody that's not afraid to have contact, get involved in some contact in there, and then it's ball game. So, receiving wise, Cooper had a pretty good game, obviously, and we're not going to put the whole blame on him for that one onside, but I hate to see that. That's the type of stuff there. And the Jets go down and make it happen again. And Garrett Wilson has an absolute. I mean, the Jets all around. I mean, Flacco balled out. He was reading the defenses. He was taking what they were given to him. He was throwing some lasers, obviously, at his old age. Garrett Wilson had a monster game. Corey Davis ended up having a really good game. Elijah Moore was pretty productive. I mean, you look at Breece Hall. He was pretty damn productive. He was averaging over 7 yards a carry, top of my head. So they could have ran the ball if they wanted to as well, but they were playing from down, so they couldn't. So that's fine. You know, it's a well-called game given the circumstances, and they clutched up, got the job done. The Browns, yeah, they choked this one away. I mean, we can pile up multiple reasons. The coach is not having these guys disciplined. Players making simple mistakes, like staying in bounds, going down, being afraid of contact on an onside kick, not knowing your responsibility on a zone coverage when you're in the NFL. I mean, there's high school kids that will never make that mistake. Really, they're nowhere near as good as these guys. Obviously, should go without saying, but they'll hear the play and they know I'm in this. I got this zone. Like, it's just common sense stuff. So that's a little confusing there. I don't know if the coaching's making it more confusing. Only they know there. But yeah, the running game was dominant in this game, and you had a big lead. And this team's all about the run, all about managing the time of possession, which you're doing. And they kind of went away. It didn't really fully go away because they were still running at the end. But I wish they would have ran the ball a little bit more because you run a little bit more clock and you gain a little bit more yards because the run game's working. So I'm not thrilled with Stefanski. I didn't like that hire when they first got him, and he was really good his rookie year there. So there was some overreactions, but yeah, it's just and it reminds me of my Vikings for so long too. And he came from the Vikings too. It's just, and what the Vikings kind of went away from, it's like there's a lot of the first portion of the game you're too worried about the clock. Almost too much running the ball, but when it's working down the stretch, you kind of don't do it enough. It's like backwards, so not really thrilled with the coaching staff the more I think about it with these Cleveland Browns. The Jets clutch up, get a win. They got some offense. I mean, this game, it went nowhere near where I thought it was going to go. Like, I like looking at last week, it's like, all right, these two are defensive teams. They are definitely defensive teams. And after this week, it's like, all right, worried about their defense. They got some offense. The Browns, though, they still couldn't really pass the ball that effectively. It was mainly just a run game. So, weird. Week 1 to week 2 things, very strange. Kind of going back to week 1, though, with the Browns, they dominated time of possession. They dominated most of that game against the Panthers, and they barely squeaked by. Maybe they were fortunate to squeak by. That shouldn't be the case. You should dominate that game. Like, that game should be closed out. And this week, they're dominating most of it, and they couldn't close it out. They let them come back and win. So it's like they're close to being 0-2, but that's really not the point. The point is they can't close out games they should win. So how are we going to trust them? It's very, very difficult to trust them, especially against playing better teams going forward. They play the Steelers on Thursday night. It's a game that can go either way, but talked about this game enough. Commanders in Detroit. The Lions are an offensive team. Not to take anything away from their defense, because their defense played a hell of a game, mainly in the first half. Aiden Hutchinson, that's what they drafted him very high for. He was a monster in this game, 3 sacks. Charles Harris had a big-time strip sack, or ended up being a safety. That was huge, off the edge there. So that was big. They had a clutch interception. Will Harris got his hands on it. So not taking anything away from the defense, but this offense, last week they put up big points against the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's making people go, some people were like, all right, Lions, their offense is good. Some people were like, it's just week 1 things. And a lot of people were going, is the Eagles defense as good as we thought? The Lions just scored how many points on them? Maybe it is good still. Maybe the Lions offense is just that good. Maybe, nothing set in stone yet, because they go out here and put up 36 points. Well-called game. It's a really solid looking offense. You see, almost at Stafford, Goff having the weapons, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Still can't believe where they got him in the draft. Not this past year, the year before. I had a second-round grade. I think a lot of people did. It was a lot surprising for a lot of people. He's just been an absolute monster. Mismatch problem, all of the above. The running game. I guess they could have ran the ball a little bit more because these guys were doing pretty well. I think they were taking it easy with Swift because they ran the ball to Williams a little bit more. He wasn't averaging nearly as much on the ground, but he was all right. So I guess that's what it was. But the pass was working so well. Goff took care of the ball. He was hitting his guys, so no complaints there. So everything was kind of working for them. And the defense was great in the first half. But just look at the first half. It was pure dominance. It wasn't just one team beating another team or one team really beating it. It was pure dominance. It looked like I use college for a reference for some reason. It looked like Alabama versus one of their beat up teams that they play. Louisiana Monroe, they just played this week. That's almost what it looked like in the first half of football. That's kind of a comparison I had. And that's great. But there is a negative thing here. Like, there is no way you should allow the Commanders to be in this game. The Commanders were actually in this game. Despite what the score shows, they were actually in this game. There was some weird plays. That interception that bounced around everywhere. That the Commanders were really in a groove. They kind of stayed in the groove, too. That was massive because the Commanders may have got a little bit closer, maybe close enough, maybe tie the game at some point. Things would have went differently with their 2-point conversion decisions and extra point decision or makes, whatever. So the Lions, it's a very positive day. I love the offense. They're explosive. They really are. Through 2 weeks, could it be an overreaction? Could it be could we be getting fooled? We see it all the time. Maybe the Lions offense all of a sudden turns, back to normal. It's not good going forward. We see it all the time. I really don't feel like that's the case here. I feel like it's a pretty good offense. Are they going to score this many points every single week? Oh, no, they're not. Nobody's going to do that, right? But I feel pretty good about the offense. I don't think it's, really, and the Commanders' defense looks pretty bad, but I don't really think it's just a first couple weeks thing. We'll see. They could have their moments where they play Minnesota next week. A little bit more of a test, we think. Who knows? So we'll see. But the Commanders, there was one big positive from the coaching staff was whatever the adjustments they made at halftime. The game plan from halftime through the rest of the game. It was actually great. Like, it's up here for coaching. Like, it was actually fantastic on what they told the players. This is what's going to work. This isn't working. This is where we're going to change things. Maybe when it comes to the blocking, things like that, because the blocking was brutal in the first half. That was great from the coaching staff. Everything else when it comes to coaching was terrible. So one thing you got up here, and one thing, can't see my hand, it's cut off, and everything else is all the way at the bottom, like, very bad. The game plan going into the game, there was none. It was brutal. I mean, I've been saying for some time the Lions get very good interior pressure. They haven't shown they have much of an edge presence. And you say, well, they got a lot of sacks in this game. Did they have much of an edge presence? A lot of it was inside. Hutchinson's very good at rushing inside. A lot of it was, maybe Wentz holding the ball a little bit too much. Charles Harris came off the outside and his the safety, which was big. And so the Commanders should have saw that. They should have got Wentz's ass on the outside, and he needs to get his own ass on the outside. Roll out early on. You got weapons. You have legs. You can throw on the run. You've done it in the past. So let's do what's working here, what's supposed to work, because we have to go off the game plan. I think they're just relying on them. Like, they're relying on themselves too much. So the game plan going in was terrible. I guess maybe the adjustments took too long. It's kind of hard to do during the game, but the second half adjustments are really good. It doesn't look like a well-coached defense, but the talent really isn't out there either. I mean, you got some guys, Jonathan Allen's a fantastic. I mean, there's guys on Chase Young, which Chase obviously not out there. But so don't get me wrong. I'm waiting for the overreactors saying that you don't think there's talent on this defense. In general, not what I'm saying. But it just doesn't look like the players are playing up to, and they're kind of, I think the secondary, they're kind of relying on development a little bit, so we could bash the front office a bit for some of that stuff. But mainly the 2-point conversion decision at the end, I don't get where teams started doing that from. I never agree with it. There's a lot of people out there that love that. Like, you get down by a score, you go for 2 to make it 6 to make things interesting. But if you don't get it, it's 8. So you're gonna have to go for 2 the next time. But guess what? If you're, if your guy misses an extra point, like they did at the end, now you're out of reach because you decided to go for 2 and you didn't get it because Wentz was the other team. So it's just pure stupidity. And it bit them in the ass there. So the coaching was not good in this one. The game plan from the start was non-existent. There was no game plan. But they came back. The offense has weapons. They have this could be an explosive offense. They just were failing from the start. There was no game plan. They weren't getting outside the pocket. It was a mixture of the offensive line melting down and Wentz holding the ball too long, not getting outside of the pocket. There was nothing wrong with the weapons. They got down so early they couldn't run the ball, so it's not on the running game. Maybe they weren't running the way they wanted to right off the bat, but it happens all the time in the NFL. So it's just a very poorly coached game. And Wentz ended up doing some things in the end, but he had a bad game as well. Not doing things right. Offensive line had a bad game. So defense looks just awful. Like, it looks like arguably the worst defense in football. You can run right up the gut. It's wide open. It looks like you can throw on them too. Somebody's bound to be open. They're confused. They're out of place. Swift fell down on a play. I don't mind the blitz call there. Swift falls down. He scores. He shouldn't get the first down. He scores. It's just really bad defense. Really, really bad defense. So it's not all on the coaching, but the coaching had a pretty bad game. The adjustments were good, though. So Lions, watch out for those Lions. They're making some noise offensively. I'm not expecting, again, I could see the offense keep doing that. Some similar things the rest of the year. Defensively, I wouldn't expect that first half from that defense a whole lot this year. It can happen here and there, but that was an incredible half, so we'll see if the Lions can keep it going. Bucks and Saints, a little bit of a boring game until the fight. Then that kind of made it interesting. But, yeah, I think the biggest play, the fight turned some things around, but the biggest play was Ingram's fumble in the red zone. On that drive, the Saints were figuring something out. They were pounding the football. They were jamming it down the Bucs' throat. Good defense over there, usually a good run defense. It felt like 7 was coming, and they ended up fumbling. That was the play of the game for me. That changed everything because the Bucs got some momentum. I think they got some momentum after the fight as well. They got some momentum going, and then the Saints really couldn't go back to pounding the football, jamming it right up, down their throats. They couldn't really go back to that. So that was massive. The fight was massive too. I mean, Mike Evans and Lattimore are both getting thrown out. We can debate all day on who's a better player overall, who's more important in general. All day. I love both those players. They're great, but I think in a game like this, I think Marshawn Lattimore is a little bit more important. So the Saints losing just based on how this game's going, based on the Saints versus the Bucs, a specific game. So losing both those guys is huge, but losing Lattimore was massive, I thought, from the Saints. And you could debate all day who should have been ejected, who should not have. Maybe Lattimore shouldn't have. I don't know exactly what happened. We don't know the specifics of what happened, but yeah, that whole mess seems like something happens every time these two teams play, and I think that's why the league is reviewing for suspension. It didn't look like enough to be a suspension, but they're trying to put a stop to the thing, so we'll see. But then the Bucs end up, figuring out in the end. I guess Brady kind of got pissed off and made some clutch throws there, and you don't want to piss Brady off, but and that's what happens there. But even without Mike Evans, they get the job done. But yeah, I think that fumble was crucial because it really changed momentum, changed the game. The Saints could have taken a lead there. They could have, they could have been in the driver's seat there, and then they kind of took the run away from themselves because the Bucs went, and then and they're getting up, and the Saints trying to play keep up, were forced to pass the ball, the run's being taken away, and then credit to the Bucs defense, the pass rush was ridiculous. They had Winston thrown off. The secondary, that pass defense in general, combining the pass rush and the blitz, the edge rush, the secondary, it might be the best in football. They're showing different disguises. They're such good playmakers where they can kind of toy with the quarterback and receivers a little bit. So Todd Bowles has those guys playing on another level right now. That is a really good group and healthy. That secondary was beat up last year for most of the year, so that was a little tough. I mean, they had to bring Sherman in, and he's getting hurt, and so things like that. But yeah, it looks really good. So that was a big reason the Bucs won the game as well, because that defense in general, the run defense is actually struggling compared to what it normally is. Yeah, somebody asked me if missing Sue is that big. I mean, they'd be maybe better with Sue, but that can't be the big difference. And the linebacker play is not doing as much as normal in run support. That's what I saw. They could be better in run support. They look like they're pretty good in coverage and in blitzing. Devin White specifically in the blitzing department. But run support, they're not themselves right now. So we'll see what's going on there. But the Bucs finally beat the Saints in the regular season. Panthers, Giants. First, I'm going to bash the Panthers quite a bit. Let's start with the Giants. Give credit to the Giants. They're 2-0. That's fantastic. They dominate the time of possession. That's how you do it. You take away snaps. You take away attempts from the Panthers. When you got, let's be honest, Daniel Jones, a little bit limited of a quarterback. That's how you got to do it. You got to try to find ways to dominate time of possession, keep the ball away from your opponent there. And then when your opponent does have the ball, let's play some defense. And they sure played some defense. Martindale had these guys playing. Leonard Williams got hurt at one point. Like that. maybe their best player on defense, that they are in trouble now. Like, no, they're still holding pat there. So we got to give credit to the Giants. They're 2-0. It feels like a well-coached team right now for a change. Winning a time of possession, Barkley, didn't do anything spectacular, but got going a little bit. Defense was stout. Daniel Jones, some clutch runs at the end of the game, clutch run. Again, defense was very, very stout. So give them credit there. They're 2-0. Do I think it continues? Maybe for a little bit, looking at the schedule, but we got to wait to the end of the year to say, all right, the Giants are a good football team. They're an undefeated football team. They really feel like that. I think it would be overreacting a little too much if we jumped on that. They very well could be 4-0. I won't be fully believing even if they are 4-0 because I'm sticking to my original evaluation prediction there. They're not really showing enough Daniel Jones-wise, pass offense-wise. They're pretty damn limited. They're kind of relying on winning time possession, relying on the defense a little bit, relying on a little bit of luck. Again, all the credit I gave them, we're giving it to them. They're deserved here. 2-0. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Get out of there with a win. But yeah, maybe a little fortunate. The Panthers start with, and they made plays. Panthers start with 2 fumbles within 5 minutes. It's hard to win a football game like that, and they're almost able to pull it off. But the Giants are 2-0, and they're going into some winnable games here going forward. So curious to see if they can keep going. But I like the future there, and I even said that in the offseason. I didn't predict the Giants to be that great of a football team in the offseason, but I was saying that I think they can turn it around very quickly because I like Joe Shane. I like Brian Daboll. They have some pieces here and there. So I think they could be a quick turnaround. Like, I think, if next year, fast forward, if they're 2-0 next year, I'm thinking it's for real. Like, if we're in next year, I think they're gonna be a good team next year. Is what I'm getting to. Very early to predict that. Panthers though, same old story for 2 reasons. Same old story because you started just awful last week. You dug yourself a hole, and then you tried to come back, and you almost won, but you couldn't do it. This week you started terribly. Couldn't get much going, but you had 2 fumbles within 5 minutes or less, whatever, right off the bat. I mean, the opening kickoff. And you didn't really dig yourself a major hole because I guess the defense did clutch up in the red zone. But they were kind of a bend don't break defense, and that's resulted in the Giants dominating time of possession. That they're able to work the field, but then you clutch up in the red zone, which again, good play in the red zone, but. Yeah, so you started very slow again with those fumbles. But the same thing as last week. Last week I was ripping him for not running the ball enough. Like, McCaffrey didn't get the ball enough. You could have won the game if you did that. But I was like, oh, maybe they're a little worried about him getting hurt. So let's take a look at the other guys' carries. No, they had 3 carries. The other running backs, they had 3 carries total. So like that wasn't an excuse last week. Go to this week. It's the same thing. McCaffrey's having a day. You're in the game. You start the game very poorly, but it's not like last week. You're actually in the game. Was it 6-0? The game's going back and forth by field goals, by threes, so you could still run the ball. So it's just pretty bad play calling. And once again, 2 weeks in a row, the Panthers get obliterated in the time of possession. And a lot of it is play calling. You're not calling the right plays. You're going 3 and out. Too much passing. Baker was scrambling pretty well. I mean, you got the weapons. The weapons are making plays as well. Just not enough. Not executing the red zone. So the Giants could do a little better executing the red zone as well. It's probably the coaching staff's probably done for at Carolina. And once again, I'd blame Ben McAdoo actually more than Matt Rule, but they're both deserving of. And we knew McAdoo couldn't been that good of a hire. So Panthers been very disappointing. Can't seem to figure it out. They have talent. There's no reason that they should be this bad. There's no reason they should be one of the worst teams in football. They're not. I'm not saying they need to be this good team or whatever. There's no reason they should be one of the worst teams in football. Absolutely no reason. They could be 2-0 right now, but they're not. They're 0-2. So, and to let Daniel Jones escape on that run at the end is just not great. Not a well-disciplined team. Next up, Patriots and Steelers. I called for Damian Harris to get the ball more because he can have a very good game in this game. He had a very good game. He got more carries. He didn't get enough carries. I know he got hurt at the end. Sounds like he'll be all right, but that's not the reason he didn't get enough carries. He didn't get enough carries, but he had a really good day. Big reason they're able to manage time of possession, win this game. And they were in more of control for most of this game, but they kind of let it get interesting at the end there. But yeah, so I still don't love the play calling, the play choice. I guess receivers made plays. Nelson Aguilar made that big time play. That Moss, that jump ball there for that was a wow play, insane play. So maybe that was the play of the game there. Both quarterbacks in this game threw a bad interception here and there, or one each. Yeah, not the most entertaining game, honestly. The Patriots kind of just did enough in this game. Again, I wish they would have got Harris the ball a little bit more. I think they could have done a little bit more damage. There was times where it's like, all right, yeah, their Steelers are missing T.J. Watt, where Mac Jones is able to hold the ball forever. They didn't sack him once, so pretty clear that T.J. Watt's ridiculous. We knew that. He's creating sacks for other guys. We knew that. Or at least I tried to tell you that. Yeah, so I think if, like I said, when I was picking this game, I picked the Patriots. I'm like, if the Steelers had T.J. Watt, I'd be picking T.J. Watt. It's like missing a big-time quarterback. I think that was the case. And then they have him, they win the game. But my opinion. Yeah, I mean, Minka Fitzpatrick has been really, really good for the Steelers. Not a whole lot of takeaways from this game. The interception the Patriots got, Mac Wilson gets that tip, hell of a play by him. Jalen Mills ended up with it, and then, yeah, just not enough from Trubisky. Just not enough. Doesn't let plays develop. Simple mistakes. I mean, when Judon sacked him at one point, like, Trubisky did a really good job getting out of the pocket. And when you get out of the pocket, you decide, all right, is there somebody that's going to get open? Because I just bought time. That's the main thing. I just added time for my receivers. It's hard to cover for that long, so somebody could be open. So do I find that receiver, or do I run? Can I run? Or, since I got outside the pocket, I can throw the ball away. And he didn't know what to do out there. And that's high school stuff right there. It literally is. It's like, so you see one of those plays, it's like he just took a sack. Like, he's like, he didn't know what to do. Do I run? I don't think he even thought of trying to throw. So that's a problem as well. Not that he has to throw to a receiver, but it was kind of like, do I run or don't I run? Let me take a sack. But it never popped in his mind that he can very easily throw the ball away as well. So just small things like that are actually big to me. We saw these things in Chicago. Like, he's kind of in his own head a little bit. I don't know why people thought it was going to change. It's just not going to change. Like, there's people that try to convince themselves that quarterbacks all of a sudden could change. And I said, yeah, he could be a little bit better with the Steelers because maybe it's a little bit better of a situation. Sure. But they're not really going to change. So, yeah, not good with the quarterback situation there in Pittsburgh. Just not enough. And some mental mistakes there. Didn't notice receivers kind of running routes like right into each other. I don't know if that's it's hard to believe that'd be a Steelers receiver issue because they got some pretty good receivers. I don't know if it's a play design issue. So something I noticed as well. I guess that wasn't helping Trubisky, but also not, kind of got to let plays go a little bit, develop a little bit there. So, yeah, not the most entertaining game. Patriots take care of business, much needed win. Colts and Jags. Jags dominated this game. The Colts missing too many guys. I did switch my pick to the Jags. Switching picks worked for me. This usually doesn't, but I switched to the Bucks because Kamara was out, and I switched to the Jags because a lot of guys with the Colts were out. Mainly Michael Pittman did it for me. So it actually worked out 2-0 switching picks. Never thought that would happen. It had to this week, though, mainly with this game. Like, this one was pretty obvious. 'Cause I was considering the Jags originally because they dominate the Colts at home. And the Colts are still trying to get in the groove, trying to get things going. But I thought they can dominate on the ground, win the time of possession. But then they were just missing too many guys. Where the the takeaways helped the Jaguars make it out of control there. So credit to the Jaguars defense. They were stout. They were getting after Matt Ryan. They were taking the ball away early. And the offense, big thing, the offense was executing early. They were getting in the end zone to extend that lead. If it was only field goals, and the Colts, like it normally is, and the Colts could have just ran the ball still because Jonathan Taylor was going to have a day. Like, he had a pretty productive day for the limited carries he got. They were just playing from so far behind, So the Jaguars had to put the ball in the end zone, had to execute off their big plays. They did. If they didn't, then again, it would have been a whole different game. Like, you look at it 24-0. If the Jaguars were just kicking field goals, it would have been a whole different game there, because again, the run game was kind of taken away from them. So Trevor Lawrence had a really good game. I like kind of calming it down, not having him throw as much. Christian Kirk seems to be his guy. Lawrence's best throw of the day was man, I'm trying to remember so much here in all these games. I forget which receiver dropped it. It was a very tough catch, so it's not on him. It was diving, but I think somewhat early in the game, Lawrence stepped up in the pocket, passed the pressure perfectly, and let it sling. That was a beautiful play by him. It was just unfortunate. It was a tough play. But yeah, he had a really good game. Lawrence. I guess the running game, James Robinson broke one big run. It was wide open. Other than that, the Colts kind of slowed that run. So yeah, Lawrence had to, and the defense had to kind of go win a game, and it was good to kind of see that. It was good seeing Peterson kind of changing what he did last week a little bit. So good signs from the Jags. The Colts, yeah, Matt Ryan had a rough one. He had a real rough one. That first interception to start was bad. It was a very bad one. Doesn't help. The receivers are very bad. I mean, they're bad when Pittman's in there, and Pittman's great. And the receiver unit's still bad. Like I've been saying it, like Pittman's got to carry this group. He's out, and Pierce is out too. Pierce hasn't proven anything. He dropped a touchdown last week, so it's everybody after Pittman on their receiver roster, whatever of receivers is about the same to me at the moment. It could change, but it's just crazy to me how they can sit back and say, we are fine at receiver. We are fine, even with Pittman in there. And you have injuries, and they're sitting there, we're fine. Like, it's just I always say you can't be afraid to get better, and the Colts are afraid to get better at the position. Like, they want, and people are ripping Reich, and maybe Reich didn't have a great game, but receivers aren't getting open. Matt Ryan has to make tight window throws. It's very difficult. He's making bad throws on top of it. The run game got taken away. It's impossible to call a game when that's going on. It's impossible, but not saying that Reich had a good game, anything like that. I still think he's a very good offensive coach. I like his playbook. I like his play calling. Sometimes people rip it. It was impossible to be a good play caller in this game. I'm not a big Ballard guy. I really haven't been. He's been hyped up quite a bit. He'll make a splash trade every offseason. It either works or it doesn't. And that's it. Like, that's enough. I'm going to rely on the guys I drafted. And he's hit on some guys, but I'm going to rely on the guys I drafted, and he has cap space. And the excuse always I don't know if he ever says it, but I always see people say the excuse is, he's saving money for extensions. Well, extensions are future money. The money now to get better now, just to sign on a guy on a 1-year deal, add a receiver, add T.Y. Hilton, has nothing to do with the extensions. 0% to do with the extensions. So that's just not valid at all. So, it just looked like the Colts just weren't good enough on the field, mainly in this game. Matt Ryan wasn't good enough. The receivers sure aren't good enough. The offensive line isn't as good as it would used to be. It was elite at one point. It's just not as good, and they're relying on some of their guys stepping up because it worked before. The running back sure is good enough, but the game got taken away from the run game got taken away from them in this game. Defensively, guys like Buckner are good enough. They got some playmakers there, but it looks like this is what it looked like on the field. It looked like they just didn't have the talent on the field in this game. They just didn't have enough to work with. That's really what it was. So very disappointing from the Colts. Jaguars are leading the AFC. The AFC South's interesting. The Titans play the Bills tonight. We got the Dolphins and the Ravens. An insane game. I predicted the Dolphins to win, but it sure wasn't like this. It definitely wasn't like this. Just a pure offensive game, 42-38. A ridiculous comeback for the Miami Dolphins there. Ridiculous bounce back for Tua Tagovailoa. He had 2 bad interceptions to start. They were moving the ball instantly when they got the Ravens returned the opening kickoff. That's fantastic for them. It's hard to, it's tough for the Dolphins, obviously. But the Dolphins are moving down the field, no problem. Like, oh man, this offense is looking good. And then Tua forces one into traffic, kind of a clutch interception there. Then he throws one up for grabs later. And so that you kind of thinking it's the same old Tua, and it's just so hard for any quarterback to bounce back from that. And he bounced back from that one. Ridiculous stat line with 6 touchdowns, over 400 yards. It's just making big plays down the field, not afraid to make any throw. That's kind of not even given to you. Not afraid to take risks. I mean, that last touchdown to Jalen Waddle, it's a little risky. I mean, everyone was probably, I'm not a Dolphins fan, but I was a little nervous there, clenching my teeth, like, oh, is he going to throw a pick there? A tight window throw, really good throw. I was saying on Twitter, he's got the balls. He's got the balls now. He really does. So fantastic bounce back and fantastic game from Tua. Bounce back within the game because he started with the 2 interceptions. I expect this to be a defensive game. The Dolphins, the defense was extremely disappointing. I guess, that's kind of the problem. They do kind of rely on that blitz quite a bit. A lot of cover 0, which if teams read it, it could get you. The Ravens had a hard time playing and reading it last year. They figured it out. They game planned for that this year. So the Dolphins were kind of insistent on that. That's why Bateman had that long touchdown. He ran the distance. It's because cover 0. It's man coverage. The safeties are up in the box. There's a lot of blitzing, so there's no guys there at that second level. So that's kind of a problem. The Ravens did a good job. Game planning for that, what they couldn't do last year. Lamar Jackson had a ridiculous game. He had a ridiculous game, and he loses. It's insane, but I mean, he did enough. He put up 38 points there. Tough part for the Ravens is they don't have much of a run game besides Lamar Jackson, and they're missing their best running back and their second best running back. That'd be J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and they're pretty close to each other in talent level, I believe. They're missing those guys. So, of course, that takes a toll out of the running game, but something's just not right in there. Where if they add those guys, or Dobbins going to come back probably next week. If they add Dobbins, I don't know if it's going to be that much of a difference. Like, it's going to be better, but with the blocking, and they're a little predictable maybe with those runs, something's not right in there. So it's a little odd. It's not right now. They're just relying on Lamar, because we saw it in the first week too. Justice Hill ran the best, and how many a couple carries? Count on one hand how many carries he got. So just relying on Lamar to run the ball. They already threw well. So in this game, when you're up by that much, what you want to do is run the football, because not to mainly focus on the clock, but the Ravens are really good at this too, because, hey, it's our forte. This is what we do. We can drain the clock. We can win the game. And they couldn't really do that. They couldn't really do that. So maybe they went away from it a little too early, too easy, I should say, not early. Maybe they went away from it a little too easy. And just insisted on the pass at the end, because I guess it wasn't working at the end. Xavier Howard almost had a pick six. He should have. There's a guy in the NFL, I'm like, all right, we need a corner that's going to catch the pick six. Who you choosing? I'm probably choosing Xavier Howard. He dropped it. So that was the only bad moment with Lamar Jackson. But the pass was stopped, like, not really working much at the end there. Would they get a PI call, was it, that kind of put them in position? They ended up getting a field goal. They tried to take a shot to Mark Andrews, a little bit out of reach. But yeah, maybe they could have went to the run. Tried it again. It's tough, because it wasn't really working. Or maybe more of the Lamar Jackson run was working, so maybe they could have went back to that. But the defense, it really wasn't on the offense. They was just trying to find things that maybe they could have done a little differently to put this game away. The defense, it was really on. They kind of let them down. And I said it in the offseason, they're changing their defense. They added a different defense coordinator. They're adding more guys that are better in coverage and for zone coverage, and they're going to shift to zone. Why? It was a good idea, and I still think it is, because teams like the Bengals, the Bills, the Chiefs, like these teams feast off of man coverage and a lot of blitz, which the Ravens do. And they were just so stuck in that they wanted to go away from it. It made perfect sense. So they add those guys. But what I also said in the offseason, that they'll probably have their hiccups here and there, because they got a lot of guys that fit that Martindale man coverage blitz defense. And they're just adding these new guys, and they're just transitioning to more zone, that they're gonna have moments where it's the learning curve. And here you go. That's exactly what it was. And I wake up and see people bashing the Ravens for shifting their defense and spending money on their defense so it fits the people don't realize what's happened. The only thing they look at is the money. It's the only thing they look at. They are switching the defense for the better, but there will be hiccups. It is to be able to run more zone coverage, because they were stuck in that man blitz defense that their biggest rivals, their biggest opponents were torching. So the knock, which I'll agree with other people, is they didn't focus on pass rush at all. That's where they deserve to be knocked, because the pass rush being non-existent in this game didn't help the secondary, but also allowed Tua to have all kinds of time, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle have all kinds of time, get open, eventually come back, So that the pass rush being maybe one of the worst in football, big problem there. But I don't have a problem with their adjustments to the defense. They just blew some coverages, which really shouldn't happen. Tyreek Hill leaking out wide open. Waddle. It's just trying to get used to the zone coverage, guys trying to figure out their responsibility, which shouldn't really happen. You should know your zone. I think that Tyreek Hill one was covered too, so the safety should have had 50-50 over the top. So that's what the mistake was. But again, I think the adjustments they made are for the right reasons. I guess now that doesn't mean it's 100% going to work. Can they put it into work? Can they make it work? Are these the right players to make it work? We're going to find out. We can't determine off this game, but it was a rough one there. Back to the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, fantastic offensive mind, has already proven it. Very good play caller. Got this offense going. It's crazy that the Dolphins are an offensive team, that they're capable of putting 42 points up on the Ravens to come back and win, that they're capable of having Tua throw 6 touchdowns, 400 yards. It's ridiculous. It also helps that they have Jalen Waddle, but added Tyreek Hill as well. That Tyreek Hill-Jalen Waddle duo is ridiculous, absolutely insane. Seeing Tyreek Hill just get wide open, just burn guys, get open, take the top off the defense, create a comeback like this. Just one play, and he's gone. It's like you just scored in seconds. Like you didn't waste any time scoring. Seeing that, I tweeted it too. It's like, and I always think it, here and there with Tyreek Hill, what he does to defenses. I thought in the past, I'm like, is this guy I guess, take away quarterbacks. Like, is this guy the best non-quarterback, like the most dangerous player in football? Like, there is nobody else like him right now. And there's some really good playmakers, but just absolutely absurd. But yeah, how clutch they were at the end there, ridiculous. So, wow. I mean, it's the wow type of game. Did not expect us to be an offensive shootout like this. Are they going to be these types of teams going forward? A lot of questions still. It's only week 2, but yeah, very, very much impressed with the Dolphins offense. Ravens offense, they're able to, again, the run game isn't working. They have to pass the ball, and they're passing against the Dolphins defense. So there's some impressive things on both sides. I do wish the Ravens would figure out their run game. The Dolphins kind of got theirs going a little bit. I think it was because of being unpredictable. I think Mike McDaniel was throwing out the run where it's like, they're not running here. So again, credit to him. That's how, if the run game isn't going strong, that's how you figure it out there. Be unpredictable, So love me some Mike McDaniel so far. Next game, Falcons and the Rams. Yeah, a little bit of a shit show, kind of. I mean, the Rams were pulling away, no problem, and then they kind of let the Falcons come back. Maybe a little on McVay there. I think going away from the run, Henderson was running pretty well. Stafford's throwing the ball to the other team, even though he had some good moments. He had some good parts of his game as well. But run the ball here and there, and the block punt for a touchdown obviously was a big part of it. And then Stafford, I know he got to some other weapon. Higbee had a productive day. Robinson had a somewhat productive day. Had a touchdown taken away from that, shouldn't have been, but they ended up scoring anyways. But still, at the same time, if Stafford kind of gets some other guys involved, it's still like you can see it in his eye. Where's Cooper Kupp? Where's Coop? Where is he? Like, it's a little bit too much of that, and that was a problem against the Bills, against a much better team than they played this week. So that still is an issue, but I wish McVay would have ran the ball a little bit more, and that resulted a little bit in the comeback. Again, the block punt as well, that resulted in a touchdown. Falcons kind of do the opposite of what they did last week. They try to fight to come back. Still some issues. I guess with Mariota. He makes some wild plays. He can scramble, make people miss, buy himself some time. That's great, but another red zone turnover. The Saints won last week. If he doesn't let Marcus May strip it for him, I think the Falcons win that game. This week, they have a shot at the end. He throws it to Ramsey. Just trying to do a little too much when he's missing the simple things. Like he's making it harder on himself. I think looking at one point he had Pitts for a touchdown, and the play was designed for him too. He just saw him. I think he saw him. That's the thing. Like I was gonna say, I think he saw him too late, but I think he saw him. I think he was more focused on getting outside a little, more, getting outside before throwing the ball, and then just whipped it over his head. That's just one of many examples. And they can't get Pitts going. This guy doesn't really need to be open too. So Mariota can't be afraid to try to fit some tight window throws or some contested catches to Pitts. That's another thing as well. So, we got one. We talk about Wentz, who was refusing to get outside the pocket. We talk about Mariota, that's insisting on getting outside the pocket. So the two opposites there. 2 different games, obviously. Just thought of that. So they had a shot though. And the running game actually started picking it up, but they were trying to come back, so they couldn't. It kind of got taken away from them. Defense, they were adjusting a little bit. I think what are they running a little bit more man, maybe than last year. I think they were like a lot of cover 3 last year. So some of the guys that were good last year, maybe it's a little bit of an adjustment period for them because they're not looking as good for the Falcons defense. On paper, it is kind of a rough defense though, so they're not going to have the best of weeks, I suppose. Next, Seahawks and Niners. Yeah, unfortunately, Trey Lance went down in this game. Garoppolo came in, and the offense looked more confident, more comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo. The play calling looked more confident and comfortable. Kind of went back to the old, thing. They were still kind of in a learning curve with Lance in there. So I'm not saying this is necessarily good. That's not what's coming out of my mouth. But they did look more confident, smooth. I think the negative of that, I guess the positive with Lance, even though they weren't as confident as, because it was a little bit different of an offense, but they were going to get there. So that's the negative of him going down. Obviously, trust that Shanahan and company, they were going to get there with that. The whole rest of the offense was used to this Garoppolo, offense, so it kind of makes sense that it was more in sync, I suppose. They got Jeff Wilson going. They did enough in this game. Defense, did enough. They had a really good game. Obviously, they shut down the Seahawks. Yeah, I didn't like the matchup of the Seahawks. I felt like the 49ers were going to be able to run the ball well. and that defense is going to be able to slow them down, unlike because they're sound when it comes to tackling, unlike the Broncos against the Seahawks last week. So I was pretty confident with the 49ers. I think they were going to win by 20. I didn't plan on Garoppolo playing either. So the Seahawks. Maybe a little too quick to go away from the run. I know they got down pretty early. Maybe a little too quick to go away from the run, which is odd. We don't normally see that from the Seahawks. I guess it really wasn't working that great. But yeah, the Niners do a good job of taking away, run away. It's just a bad match for the Seahawks, and the Seahawks really aren't the best team on paper. They did look pretty good in week 1, but it was week 1. So yeah, it was tough. It was kind of Geno trying to do a little too much because he had to there. So I don't have too much on this game. And the Seahawks had that blocked field goal too, so this could have been even more out of hand there with with this game. So I just don't like the matchup. And the 49ers are the better team than the Seahawks. And the 49ers are – it's not a shot at Lance. There's some people that will say that, and they look like assholes. Like, the 49ers are a better team right now with Garoppolo. They could have been, if the season played out, they could have been a better team with Lance. We don't know that. Like, they definitely could have been. They probably would have figured something out. But today – against the Seahawks in week 2, they're a better team with Garoppolo, so it was tough for the Seahawks there. So I don't have too much on that game. 49ers did go back to dominating the time of possession, doing their thing there. They dominated time of possession. That's their thing. Bengals and Cowboys. Bengals so disappointing here. Cowboys defense insane. I did question the Cowboys defense coming in this year, and there's still a lot of season left. I didn't think it was gonna be. I thought it'd be a good defense, so it's not like I thought it'd be a bad defense or anything. But I did wonder because it was very good last year. It was very solid. But at the end of the year, they kind of got figured out a little bit. Enough, still it was still good, but it was because they were predictable. They were in man coverage more than anyone. So going into this year, it's like, are they going to continue to be predictable? Are they going to switch it up? Do they have the guys built for man though? So if they do switch it up, it's going to be a problem. So it's kind of like, all over the place. They did a really good. They're doing a really good job. They just got really good players out there, led by Micah Parsons. Trevon Diggs is fantastic as well. And they're doing a really good job mixing it up and just mainly it's just making plays. The big time players making plays. So the Cowboys defense looking pretty damn stout. And give credit to Cooper Rush and those guys. They made plays when they needed to. Tony Pollard had that big play. Noah Brown's been fantastic for them. So credit the Cowboys. They made plays. So the Bengals, a lot of people actually surprised by it, calling for Zach Taylor to be fired. I mean, I talk about it on Twitter. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't even want to go in. I don't even want to go into that. Like, you're an overreactor. I mean, there's a lot of those fans. A lot of those fans of college football, I notice, and more of like, as soon as you see a play, it's like, oh, they're terrible. Like, fire this guy. It's so bad. Like, it's just a little out of control. I mean, he was just in the Super Bowl a few games ago, and there's no way he thought he'd be fired then. So if you think he should be fired a couple games later, again, that's a you problem. I was talking about this on Twitter. So what is the main problem? Did Zach Taylor call a great game? No, he didn't. He wasn't very good either. But it's very difficult to call a game in the circumstances where you're trying to come back. You can't. It's hard to pass because the quarterback is under pressure or he's acting like he's under pressure instantly. And you got a crazy pass rush. You don't want to have as many throwaway interceptions, turnovers as last week because you got a playmaking defense that gets pass rush when you're running. Then so you want to go to the run, but the run gets predictable then. So it's very tough to call plays under the circumstances. Not that he had a well-called game or anything, but the number one problem is they're getting to that scenario. They're getting to that situation. So the number one problem is the quarterback has about 2 seconds to throw, and he's acting like he has half the second to throw. Both things are terrible. And then those numbers are very much probably exaggerated, but you get my point. Burrow does not have time to throw. He's acting like at all times he has less than no time to throw, if that makes any sense. So there are, honestly, there are times where he has a little bit of time, or there's times where he has time, but he's, so it's kind of in his head right now. But it's not just his fault. It's the offensive line's fault as well. It's still mind-blowing that people just went crazy about the Bengals offensive line additions, where it's like pretty good. Like, they had Kappa, I like Leo Collins. Like, it's not like get out of your seat, holy crap, but people were acting like they just went from worst to first, the offensive line. The Ted Karras one was weird because people like thought that was not that he's specifically playing bad, but I guess we're getting off topic now. But I just going back to free agency, like how everyone thought, people were like the Bengals, and I was the one sitting. How many times I repeat it? Like we have to see it in action. Like I don't know if they should have got better, but we have to see it in action. But the Karras one was funny too because people thought that was this huge signing. Like we just got the Patriots starting center. No, David Andrews is the Patriots starting center. He was and is the Patriots starting center. So. I know Karras filled in here and there in spots, but so I still, that blows my mind a little bit. It's probably the same fans, and I don't know if it's not just Bengals fans, people around the world, like the same fans that overreact from that, calling for Taylor's head right now. It's just you're a little all over the place. Let's calm down a little bit. All right. When things happen, let's calm down. But, yeah, I think so many hits and so much pressure that Burrow is expecting to be hit instantly, and that's kind of causing a problem. A big thing that I realized is that I think he was being a little bit too careful with not throwing interception in this game because what happened last week, I think he was being a little bit too careful. I really think so, and we would have been better off throwing an interception, and having multiple reps trying to get the ball. And he did here and there. He tried here and there, but I think he was just too focused on the pressure and scrambling. What happened last week got in his head a little bit, knowing we're playing Micah Parsons this week. You played TJ Watt, play another one, playing Micah Parsons this week. So I think it was a little bit. I think the offense in general was in their own heads a little bit. Like we don't want to force things downfield with the play calls. We're limiting the playbook. It's the playbook does get limited when these things happen on the field, though. So that's why I can't rip Taylor too much. Again, I think a lot of it in your own heads with the offense. They fought back. They could have came back there. They allowed the Cowboys to get down there for a field goal. And the defense was weird, too. Like, I expect the Bengals defense to be much better. Going against Cooper Rush, this defense is usually a pretty stout defense. They usually confuse quarterbacks. That's kind of their thing. And they're early on, they were letting the Cowboys kind of get away with big plays. Tony Pollard play, too. To start the game before the Pollard play. And at the end to go get that it wasn't an easy field goal, but easily get down there and go get that field goal. So a tough one for the Bengals. They're going to figure something out fast. They're in their own heads. That's what it is right now offensively. That's literally what it is right now, and it's a collective thing there. So it's tough. Texans and Broncos, and it's a little bit of a shit. This is a shit show too. A boring game here. Just a poorly coached game all the way around offensively. Poorly offensively coached game all the way around. Defensive coaches, which Lovie Smith's the head coach. He's defensive coach. Defensive coaches, good job. You did a good job. Offensive coaches, bad. I mean, Hackett looks like the worst coach in football right now. Literally the worst. And there's some bad ones out there. But the Broncos find a way to win. Too much having insisting on Russell Wilson cooking, I guess. Letting him ride. Insisting on that. Maybe because you just traded for him and paid him a lot of money. I don't know. But too much, and Rustin, again, I don't think he played that good of a game. Last week, the stats looked good. I didn't think he played as good as the stats, but he was all right. This week, there was some drops. They had quite a few drops in there. I know Judy went down at one point, but the main thing is seeing things too late. He's seeing things later than normal, so that's kind of the issue right now. But just kind of, and he's not being done any favors with Hackett, like kind of forcing it, like we're gonna make you throw the ball a million times, and become predictable when our running game is just really good. Like Javonte Williams is tearing it up, and you're just insisting on the pass. And at 3rd and 1 at midfield, you're gonna go fullback option, just ridiculous. And then you don't know what to do. He's in his own head once again. You don't know what to do. You get put out of field goal range. It's just ridiculous. So it's just. You have to burn timeouts. I mean, some of it, maybe some, Russell Wilson, taking his time in the huddle a little bit, but I think it's more Hackett. I think it's more Hackett there. So he's been very bad, but they find a way to win here. It's mainly defense. Defense missing some guys too. Simmons already out. Surtain got hurt in this game. Draymond Jones has been a freak. I mean, he's been insane for the Denver Broncos. We got to give credit to him. I guess they did a better job tackling this week, unlike the first half of last week. But they get the job done there, I suppose. But the red zone problems also kind of continue as well. They look a little sloppy, but I think a lot of it's Hackett. Well, I guess the red, they had, was that Hinton that almost made that ridiculous catch? Wilson had somebody wide open, just didn't see him until then, and he got tipped up, and then instantly throws the ball away on the next down. So I guess the red zone, some of it could be on Wilson a little bit, but just go back to the run a little bit more. Use the run because it's dominant to control the game and to open up the pass. So they're a little backwards there. And the Texans, yeah, I guess I didn't really realize it, at the time of watching the game, but the more I look at this game and more, reflect on it, it was a poorly coached game offensively, like very poorly. Like they went from one extreme to another. They wouldn't use Dameon Pierce at all last week, and they didn't use him enough this week. So I guess it's not in that way. But they only used him. They didn't use any other backs. They only used Pierce. They literally didn't give carries to any other backs. They only used Pierce, and they only gave him the ball 15 times. He was running pretty well. Again, if you watching film, like the Broncos struggled with the first guy tackling last week. Pierce, a violent runner, physical runner. That should be the game plan. You're in this game. You're in it. It's kind of who can control the ball more battle. It's a great reason to run the ball. All those I just explained, multiple reasons, a great reason to run the ball. And you're insisting on the pass. And I think Davis Mills has been solid. I think he's been all right for Davis Mills. Like, I think he's been okay. Like, he's shown some promise. Like, he hasn't been great, but he has not been bad. I mean, he had some throws late when they were trying to push the ball downfield that weren't great. A little underthrown. He's under a lot of pressure. But that's the thing. He's under a lot of pressure. More so, I think, with the play calling is putting him under a lot of pressure. It's like, you're going to go out there, and even though we're in this game, we should be running the ball. You're going to throw the ball 37 times, whatever the hell it is. We're going to put it on you. It's all on you. It's going to become predictable. You got to go do it. He doesn't have the best receiver group either. You got to go do it. They are putting Mills in a pretty bad situation. He's not playing bad either. So the more I talk about it, the more frustrated I get too, because it's almost like either they're stupid because they didn't see all of that with the game plan with the running game, and you're in the game, you can control this game, you can hold the ball, keep it away from Russell Wilson, and all it takes is the Broncos get the ball back and, hey, finally decide we're going to run the ball to Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, because we can do that, and it's game over, like control the clock. So you got to be thinking those things. So it's either they're stupid or they're trying to, it almost looks like they're trying to test Davis Mills so much, they're trying to put all that on him and put him in a difficult situation, which they did, just to test him, just to see, because the Texans going like, what's pressure this guy? I don't know if they're doing this. That's kind of what it looks like. Either it looks like they're stupid or they're doing this, like just to see if he's their guy in the future, or do they need to draft a quarterback early in this really good draft class? Like, that's what it looks like to me. I don't know only they know, but it was bad this week. They're putting too much on Davis Mills, and he is better than quite a few of those quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round of the same draft, and Mills' job is harder than theirs, and he's been better. And he's not playing good right now, but I think it's mainly because of where they're putting him. So here's my little rant, and it will end up being a little bit more because that frustrates me. Both the offensive coaching staff frustrate me in this game. Broncos play the Niners on Sunday night next week. Either team can win that game. Texans play the Bears. I think either team can win that game. It's all about coaching in that game, those games, it feels like. Cardinals and Raiders, a wild one here. Through a large portion of this game, I'm going, and the Raiders are beating them up. They're up 20-0, and I'm not even like going, the Raiders are good. Like, it's just the Raiders, there was really no takeaway about the Raiders there. It was like, man, the Cardinals a really bad football team. Like, that's kind of what I'm questioning. Like, they look like they're really bad. Like, am I gonna have to put them at the bottom of the power rankings? Like, I wasn't thinking of like 32, but like, is this team like really bad? Like, offense has got nothing. Defense has got nothing. They just don't have enough of anything. I mean, at one point, Murray scrambles out and just throws a ball. Like, it's one of those where it's like you're kind of building up for Murray to be, he's scrambling out. He's going to throw like a bomb downfield for a touchdown, just throws it directly to the defender. Like, at that point, I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, what is this Cardinals team? This is so bad. Like, this is a really bad football team. That's what I'm thinking at that point. And then they win the game. And also they win the game. And it's like, all right, credit to the Cardinals. Murray did a great job scrambling, figuring things out. Receivers stepped up. The defense was getting them the ball back. The defense made a clutch play. They forced 2 fumbles in overtime. Isaiah Simmons ends up making the clutch one. Murphy picks it up, returns it for a touchdown. He almost blew it too, dropping it before. Some people are still saying he dropped it before. He didn't, but he's still an idiot for doing that. So they clutch up and go. It's like my takeaways from this game though are mainly the team. Like, again, most of this game, the first half, it's like, are the Raiders, are they good? Like, they're looking good. And no, it was the Cardinals are a really bad football team. And the rest of the game, It's the Raiders. Like, what the hell is that? Like, the Cardinals played as bad as you could play. They look like a really bad football team. You're up 20-0 and you cannot find a way to win. This says more about the Raiders. Like, how you cannot find a way to win that game. It's early in the season, but it just doesn't give me trust in the rest of the season. Like, how am I going to trust you to win bigger games, tougher games? How am I going to trust you to do that? Like, I can't. And a lot of people can't. Like, they're not going to. Like, this team is not going to win. And I know the fan base probably has hopes of winning a Super Bowl this year. They're not going to go win a Super Bowl. They're not going to do that. We know that. They're not going to go do that. So they could be a good team still. It's only been 2 weeks, but it's been pretty brutal. It's been pretty brutal there how they could just – you can't find – I mean, the first game was like, too many interceptions, too many turnovers. They just didn't have enough juice. This week was just like, how do you not find a way there? Multiple problems. Look at Derek Carr. If you look at the stat line, he looked like he had an all right game. I don't really think so watching the game. He didn't have as bad a game as last week. He didn't throw 3 interceptions. Maybe he was trying not to do that. But it seems different. It seems different in this offense. It's a lot of it's a lot of it's hard to explain. You might be trying to look for Adams maybe too much, perhaps. 'Cause I see there was a moment where, and I see it here and there, where it's like, one example, we're going to send Renfrow in motion. We're going to send him back. Like, what are they trying to do? They're trying to read if the defense is in man coverage. They're trying to follow Renfrow back and forth. They're in man coverage. Snap. I'm going to throw to Adams. You didn't realize that no one was on Waller. Literally no one. And this is just one specific play. It happened, not the specific thing where throw to Adams, Waller's wide open, but things like this happen constantly. Like, nobody was on Waller. The Cardinals were confused like they were last week with the Chiefs. And he just not 2-step drop. I'm going to launch to Adams. And it was incomplete because it was tight, good coverage. Sometimes Adams make the play. Yeah, but he did not realize that the man covered. Nobody was on him. I'm screaming it at my TV. So things like that. So Derek Carr seems different, maybe because he has Adams, because we're going to try to read what the defense doing, and we're insisting on this one target, or maybe sometimes not Adams, but we're insisting on this first option. That's kind of the problem there. And Carr's really not clutching up like we see him do. So maybe that's a little bit more of the coaching too, with the insisting on the first option. But it's something I definitely noticed. I just can't figure out how you can't put this game away, like how you can't close this out. The Cardinals were playing so bad in this game, and you can't figure it out. And the Cardinals clutched up at the end. Another big reason was the pass rush of the Raiders was non-existent. This isn't a very good offensive line of the Cardinals. Kyler Murray was able to stand back there forever, able to scramble around, do his thing. They had a delay of game on that 2-point conversion, and you let him. He threw it. He's a good quarterback. He can put velocity on the ball. If he could stand back there and not get touched, he's going to fit a tight window ball in there. He's going to make the play. AJ Green is going to make the play. And it was good coverage too for as long as you got to cover. That's what it was. You have Chandler Jones, you have Max Crosby. Max Crosby was blowing things up early in this game, but they were non-existent down the stretch. But I don't know if I can fully blame them. And I can't. It's like because they're relying on those guys too much. You got no interior pressure. I said that in the offseason too. Like, you got this. People were hyping up the edge group, and it's great. On paper, it's great. But you need other things. You need interior pressure for that to work. And they didn't have that. And I said that during the offseason. Like, the Raiders defense just isn't there yet because they don't have the pieces. I like Patrick Graham as defensive coordinator. Some idiot out there is probably blaming him for that. Definitely not his fault. They just kind of just didn't have enough. Murray had all day to work with, and when you give a guy like that all day to work with, you got problems. So that was a major problem. Just a big meltdown. Allowing the Cardinals to get down there, allow them to get the 2-point conversions, delay of game, get the 2-point conversion. That was bad for the Cardinals to get in that delay of game, but and then Renfrow fumbling twice. It's just a meltdown, just an absolute meltdown from the Raiders. So not a lot of trust for them going forward. Does that mean they're going to lose every game? No. I don't want somebody to think that, but not a lot of trust in them going forward. Maybe the Cardinals figured something out in this game, winnable game against the Rams. They just can't have the starts like they're having because they look really bad early in those games. Bears and Packers. The Packers get the job done 27-10. They controlled, dominant time of possession. That's ultimately what did this. What went into that. I guess the running game was dominant. Aaron Jones was dominant. A.J. Dillon, maybe a little bit too much of him. I was saying that earlier this game. Where's not A.J. Dillon? Where's Aaron Jones? Because you see a lot of these plays, the quicker guy would get away here. And then you see that. They start giving the ball to Aaron Jones. He was dominant in this game. The 2 leading rushers of week 2 were in this game, actually. Aaron Jones and David Montgomery. Montgomery had a pretty good game. considering that the Bears were trying to fight back, they were playing from down pretty big at one point. They were still running the ball. And Montgomery was getting going, so that was pretty impressive there. Had a little more wiggle, than I've seen from him in the past too. So that was big time from him. But yeah, that was tough though. It's at the same time, it's like you're playing from down, you're trying to play keep up, and you're just insisting on the run. The run's working, but you're going to run the clock. It just feels like they really don't want to have Fields. I kind of want to look it up how many attempts he had, because I don't know. A lot of times I know on the top of my head how many attempts guys had, but I'm actually curious to know how many passing attempts Justin Fields had. 11. That's even worse than I thought. 11. 7 for 11. So it's and he threw 17, 18 last week against the 49ers. And you're playing from down in this game. You're playing from down in that game, but it worked out last game. But it is very clear they do not want Fields throwing the ball a lot. They don't want him to face pressure, maybe throw interceptions. They don't have the receiver unit. That's a little concerning. It kind of shows their lack of, the lack of belief in Justin Fields and that passing attack. So that's not good. It was actually worse than I thought. I mean, you were down big points at one point, and you're still only threw the ball 11 times. I know the run was working, and they actually had a shot to get back in this game. They had that goal line stand there. The Packers stopped them. Justin Fields, and that was debatable, I guess, there too, where he could have been in. When they kept showing that replay, I'm like, it's an interesting angle. It kind of looks like he's in, but it's tough to tell because when that happens, when it's tough to tell, they usually stay with the call on the field. Which is the right thing because it's been, in a way, because that's what the refs are supposed to do apparently. But my problem always with the inconclusive evidence is you're just going with the call on the field. Whatever, even if something kind of looks like, it's got to be this way, you're kind of going away from that. I think inconclusive evidence should be make your best logical, use knowledge here. Use logic here. Best logical guess. And it looked like the ball based on where the ball was supposed to be and where his body was, it was over the goal line. It looked like when I was watching the replay. But if there's really, and you couldn't really see it. So I guess they made the right call, but I think what they should look into is making the inconclusive evidence going what the most logical call would be. An example would be if a guy catches a ball, right? But and his arms, you can't see the ball. It's him in the ground. You cannot see the ball because his hands are covering it. But using, looking at the anatomy, but or just logic, like the way his hands are laying, like the ball's sitting on the ground. But in the NFL's case, we called it a catch on the field, and we can't see the ball, even though he probably dropped it. We have to keep it a call. So that, using logic, using the body, like how everything is, I think inclusive evidence should go with the most logical outcome or case, and that would be a drop. So that's an example I give. So in this case, maybe you determine that he has to be over the goal line, but they can't do that. So I'm not saying it was the wrong call because you couldn't really tell, and that's what the league has been doing. The officials have been doing inclusive evidence. You go with the call on the field. So it actually was the right call. But again, I was looking at the replay. I'm like, I think he's in. But I did see it was funny because I saw a graphic somebody made to kind of prove that he was in, and they drew a line on the goal line and they circled the ball. And I'm looking at the circle. I'm like, no, I think the ball is over here actually. So that picture to prove that he was in actually helped me think, the case a little bit more that like, we don't know. Like because I don't think that graphic accurately told me that he was in. It actually made me back off of thinking that he was in. So I thought that was actually kind of funny. But yeah, so that was wild. If the Bears would have scored there, my point was if the Bears would have scored there, they would have been in the game, despite only throwing the ball 11 times, despite the Packers dominated time possession. So the positive overall, the Packers won. They end up winning big. They were dominant on the ground. They could find ways to win. They kind of got in their groove. They got momentum. They got going. It took like 5 quarters. Big positive overall. It is positive. But the Bears were actually kind of, even though it's 27-10, the fact that the Bears were kind of close to inches away from being in the game, it's like the Packers shouldn't really allow that, but they end up finding a way here. I thought Preston Smith had a really good game. He was the better of the pass rush duo there. Obviously, game was kind of over, but Alexander, that interception was ridiculous. Big time interception there. I don't have much takeaways besides that. The Packers kind of got in their groove. They got going. Aaron Jones was fantastic. They got that. This could be a very scary running team. Very scary. Yeah, good to have Lazard back there. Early in this game, the Bears went down and scored with ease, and it was like, this might be a ball game, but it kind of just went south instantly for the Bears and went north for the Packers right after that. But again, the Bears were kind of fighting back then. Don't like the shotgun on that play for Fields either. I don't like that. You should not be, you only have this much to go. Why are you making it, this much? Also makes it more predictable because they're not going to pass. They're not going to hand the ball off out of shotgun. The only thing it could be is the running quarterback. Maybe he could have probably jumped the pile and perfect case. Fields could have done that a little better, but that's the only thing he was going to do. Like if you're under center, like he could sneak it, which is, it's so hard to stop even if it's coming, or he can hand it off. Because under center, it's not as far as a trip because you're meeting the quarterback halfway, the running back that is. So, I felt like Nagy was out there still. I'm just on that one play, but I do like Eberflus though, even though he's still not a shot at him because he's not calling plays. But my point is I do like him as so far. I like how he has players prepare, the discipline level, things like that. So, yeah, I'm wowed about the 11 attempts. That kind of sums up everything. It was 17 or 18 last week, one of those. It kind of sums it up a little bit. They don't trust Fields. They don't want to have him throw a lot. They don't want to put him in a negative mindset. If he fumbles or throws an interception, that's pretty clear. That's what they want to do here. I know the run game is working, but you're playing from too far behind. If this game was kind of neck and neck and they were doing that and he only 11 throws, then I can't be saying this. But so it's that's kind of my main takeaway now. So that's pretty tough. But I do think the Bears have capabilities of being better than what everyone thought. Like they had moments in this game, so they have capabilities of being better than this, better than losing 27-10. And they won last week, so they kind of showed that. But that'll wrap it up for the recap takeaways. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We're always talking with you guys on Twitter. A lot going on Twitter, talking during live games. We'll have my takeaways and thoughts for the Monday night football games. There's 2 of them. I really don't like that scheduling, but hey, we get 2 more football games. That's the positive thing. Week 3 action starts tomorrow. Power rankings at night, weekly picks, score predictions on Wednesday. You guys know the drill. So join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.